Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to jump right in and use some incredible ancient sources to unpack a really pivotal moment in history. So here's the big question for today. How does a land empire, something that took a decade to build, just vanish in a single chaotic year? We're going to dig into the exact moment Athens' power was tested to its absolute limit, forcing a really dramatic and, frankly, brutal change in its whole strategy. All right, so let's set the scene. Before everything came crashing down, Athens had actually built up this formidable, but as we'll see, pretty fragile land empire. See, by about 457 BC, you gotta remember, Athens wasn't just this big naval power everyone knew about. No, they'd carved out a serious land empire. They won a big battle at Oenophida, and bam, they basically controlled the whole region of Boeotia. Then Phocis becomes an ally, and this is the big one. They get control of Megara and its ports. So in just a few years, their influence is stretching way deep into mainland Greece. But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. This whole thing was built on pure military might, not loyalty. And that weakness, well, it was about to be brutally exposed. And that's what brings us to what I'm calling the Coronia Domino. Seriously, it's just one battle, but it changed absolutely everything. The great historian Thucydides, he gives us this really stark account. He tells us that these Boeotian exiles, they defeated the Athenians, killed some, and took a bunch prisoner. And the result? Athens had to get out. They had to evacuate the entire region of Boeotia. I mean, this wasn't just a minor setback. This was a catastrophic loss that basically signaled the beginning of the end for their whole land empire experiment. And you know, this wasn't just a case of bad luck. The whole revolt was led by these really bitter exiles who had a score to settle. And Athens? They just completely underestimated the threat. They only sent about 1,000 of their own troops. The defeat was so bad, so total, that Athens actually had to trade its prisoners just to get its remaining guys out of there safely. The big takeaway here, the message that went out to all of Greece, was crystal clear. Athenian land power could be broken. So the defeat at Coronea, it was like pulling a pin from a grenade. It triggered a chain reaction. The consequences were immediate, and for Athens, they were just catastrophic. And the collapse happened shockingly fast. I mean, just look at this. First, Athens loses Boeotia. Almost right away, the vital island of Euboea, a huge source of their food, rebels. Then, Megara, their critical buffer zone against Sparta, completely flips, switching sides and killing the Athenian soldiers stationed there. And with Megara gone, well, that's an open door for Sparta to invade. We're talking about a matter of months, where Athens goes from this dominant power in central Greece to literally fighting for its survival on its own doorstep, in its own backyard of Attica. Thucydides really puts us right in the middle of this chaos. Just imagine you're Pericles, the leader of Athens, okay? You're over on the island of Euboea, trying to put down one rebellion, and then you get the news, and it's all bad. Megara has revolted, your garrison there has been wiped out, and oh, by the way, the entire Spartan army is about to march into your homeland. It's an absolute strategic nightmare. And sure enough, the Spartan army marches all the way to Eleusis, which is just miles from Athens itself. The city is right on the brink of total disaster. But then, something weird happens. They just turn back. The Spartans retreat. And this gives Pericles the exact breathing room he so desperately needed. So the question is, what on earth happened? Why did they just stop? Well, ancient historians like Plutarch hint that Pericles didn't use soldiers, he used a different kind of weapon, cash. Apparently, he put down an expense of 10 talents, which is a massive sum of money, for, quote, necessities. And the Athenian assembly, they just approved it, no questions asked. The story goes that this was a straight-up bribe for the Spartan king, who, by the way, was later exiled for this very retreat. So you see, Pericles didn't buy a military victory, he bought survival. So Athens had survived. They dodged a bullet. And now it was payback time. Pericles took this time he just bought and used it to make sure a crisis like this could never, ever happen again. The new price of defiance was going to be an empire built on pure fear. With the Spartan threat gone, at least for now, Pericles immediately went back to Euboea, and he crushed that revolt with absolute ruthless efficiency. To make a point, one city, Histiaea, had its entire population kicked out, and their land was just handed over to Athenian settlers. A crystal clear, brutal message was being sent all across the Aegean. This is what happens when you rebel. And we actually have the proof of this new policy, literally carved in stone. It's called the Chalkis Decree from around 446 BC, and it lays out, in no uncertain terms, the harsh conditions forced on the city of Chalkis. This document is probably our single best piece of evidence showing how Athens' relationship with its so-called allies had completely changed. And the language in the oath they had to swear is just so telling. It says, "I will not revolt from the people of Athens, and I will obey the Athenian people." Do you see that shift? It's huge. Loyalty isn't to some mutual alliance anymore. No, it's sworn directly and only to the people of Athens. I mean, when you put them side by side, the shift is just undeniable. An older oath might have said you swear loyalty to Athens and its allies, right? It sounds like a partnership. But this new Chalkis Decree, it demands loyalty only to the Athenian people. Any pretense, any idea that this was a league of equals was completely gone. It was replaced by the cold, hard language of an empire and its subjects. Period. So all of this, the collapse, the near disaster, the ruthless reconquest, it all led to a formal settlement that would define the entire Greek world for years to come. It was the forging of a brand new reality, something we call the 30 Years' Peace. So what did this peace treaty actually do? Well, it basically formalized this new reality. Athens had to give up its dream of a land empire, handing over all its holdings in the Peloponnese, which was Sparta's home turf. But in return, the Greek world was officially divided into two spheres of influence. You had the Athenian naval empire, and you had the Spartan land power. This two-block system, it essentially created an ancient Greek Cold War. It was this grudging admission from both sides that neither one could totally destroy the other. So let's just recap. In one incredibly chaotic year, Athens lost an entire land empire. But what's fascinating is that this crisis forced them to double down on what they were good at. It forced them to consolidate their control over the sea, creating a more focused and honestly a far more ruthless maritime empire. And at the same time, it forced Sparta to officially accept this new two-power Greek world. Which leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought to chew on. Was this 30 Years' Peace a genuine attempt at coexistence? Or was it really just a 14-year ceasefire, a pause button before an inevitable all-out war? Of course, we know now how the story ends. The peace was incredibly fragile. It was just a temporary truce that let the bitter rivalry between Athens and Sparta just simmer away right below the surface until it finally and catastrophically boiled over into the absolutely devastating Peloponnesian War.